All right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming to the second day of the Pacific Northwest Drupal Summit. And thank you. All right. So this is Echoes from the Past, Lessons from Software History that resonate today. And I'm your speaker, Mike Nielsen. If this wasn't the session you're attending, the door is still there. So feel free. I wanted to give a quick shout out again to our sponsors. Pacific Northwest Drupal Summit wouldn't happen without, well, primarily you all, the attendees. Thank you so much for coming. It's really beautiful outside today, and it's you could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. We appreciate that. Also, we appreciate the sponsors. There's a lot of work that goes into this conference, and I am continuously appreciative of all of their efforts. And I, having done it, I'm intimately aware of how much effort comes into this. I want to say thank you. All right, who am I? I'm Mike Nielsen. So this talk is a kind of an open rant / vent session / commiseration. Audience participation is strongly participated. Otherwise, it's just going to be me running my mouth for 45 minutes on the problems I've run into in my life, or in my professional life. We're going to keep it personal life. So please, to pipe up, chime in, ask questions. So me, I'm a senior Drupal engineer at Concora Credit. They're based in Beaverton. They've got a bunch of, we have offices in Ohio as well, I think. And we're a fintech firm that we're using Drupal to communicate with our clients who are people who are interested in acquiring a credit card whose credit isn't perfect, because it's a vertical that is really underserved, and we feel we can do a lot of good there, getting people to kind of work through and establish a history, which will then allow them to get a better to interface with capitalism positively. And from a perspective, if you if you feel inclined to listen, bend an ear. So, technology evolves rapidly. I think most of us have been here have been in technology at least for a little while. I've been working with Drupal since Drupal 4. So it's been, I haven't been here since the beginning, but I've been here for a while. So it's important. People ask the question, since technology evolves so rapidly, why is it important to know about our history? And there is a Spanish philosopher says that you use the phrase, those who cannot remember the past or can never repeat it. With a focus on the future, which is something tech does so often, it's really easy to kind of go, okay, well, the past is the past. We've moved past that. We've made, we don't have to think about that because that, we're focused on the future. So when we learn from history, it empowers better decision making. We as people are creatures of habit. We get into patterns. We repeat things over and over and over again. And so a lot of times we have a tendency to make decisions that will ultimately lead to the same problems we've had in the past. And because organizations, corporations, companies, nonprofits, they're made of people. People have habits. We have these. We can all fall victim to that kind of circular tendency of falling into a habit and then going out and making those same mistakes over and over again. Because people are people, we're also bad at risk assessment. We fall victim to fallacies, sophistries. These are all, I don't know, this isn't a psychology class, but it's something to think about, All right. But why? So, why do organizations, why do initiatives fail? Netscape, MySpace, these were huge companies, really, I think it's 20 years ago, but it's probably closer to 40.
Not for MySpace.
Yeah. These were titans of industry, but they don't have any ability. The organizations aren't around anymore. They're not impactful. But why? So we have is it capital? Know-how? No. Bad timing. So there's a joke I wanted to give. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Interrupting cow.
Interrupting cow.
Oh, I'm supposed to say moo. Bad timing is an idea. For a second dad joke, this is one of my favorite ones. Is how gay dad taught me this one. How do you wake up Lady Gaga? Poker face.
Oh.
Okay. So, pop quiz. How many of these companies or technologies existed before 2017? 2017 is a really special year for me in my personal life. My daughter was born that year. So, to me, it feels like it crossed a Rubicon. And so it's like, thinking of where 2017 feels like forever ago. And so, which of these I'm
saying D.
D? All the above? You would be correct. Congratulations. Now,
Which one was correct?
bonus. What was that?
What's correct?
D.
Well, all of the above, yeah.
D.
All of these technologies, Drupal 8. Bonus question: what of these are the oldest?
Node.js is like 2009? Earlier than that?
It's got to be open A, because that's 8. It's got to be a trick question.
So consensus is Node.js for being the oldest among these august newbies.
Well, if you're only talking about version 8 of Drupal,
Right.
then yes. If you're talking about Drupal as a whole, then definitely not.
Yeah, so version 8 of Drupal. So it is Drupal 8. It was Alpha 2 was in June of 2013. So
Node.js was already out.
Yeah.
Node.js was...
according to the release page, Node.js V0 was 2015. So
Are you going off the NPM page? NPM was rebuilt.
okay, maybe I'm going at this wrong. Also wanted to give a shout out. So the individual on the page is the executive director of the OpenJS Foundation. So this is I love to put faces to names to people. All right. So we need some guidelines to help navigate our, the chaotic seas of making decisions for our organizations. So there are quite a few principles that will help build resiliency in an organization. That will, because to quote, we have, to quote an unnamed person, we have, a lot of times when you're working with a problem, you have known unknowns, things you know you don't know, and then you have unknown unknowns, things you don't know that you don't know, those are truly terrifying because those can crop up at any time, and you're kind of stuck at that point. So you need to be able to do things like have processes for that, and generalizing, being able to know, okay, this is how I would approach a problem if this is in front of me. So, Yeah, timeless. The one that yes, these are the ones that I think, in my book, are probably the most impactful. Especially, the collaborate being twice. That's it was kind of a. It's not exactly a typo, but these are, focusing on collaboration, bringing stakeholders in, saying, okay, who's not at this conversation, which might not, that might be a good idea to get into this conversation. I try to ask myself that quite a bit, is to say who's here and who's not, who should be here. All right, so these are lessons we potentially could be losing. One is separation of concerns. So, for those who are familiar with some JS, there is an ability to put CSS in JS.
Down with JSX.
So that to me, as an old guy, someone who's been around the web for a long time, isn't that just inline CSS with extra steps?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't feel like. You tell me. You look at these two. Left is JSS. Right is inline styles. Right?
For the most part.
Right? What's the big difference?
One just has extra build steps.
I mean, I don't. Yeah. When I saw that the first time, I was like, didn't we? We
tried.
did that.
Yeah, we've tried several times.
We did that before, and it didn't work out. And
It
but
also bothers me that there's an object with a backtick inside of it, and then some stuff. Like, it hurts my brain.
That's JSX, man.
Hurts my brain.
it's the future. No, it's like, but we did this, and then we found out why it was terrible, and then we fixed it, and then we didn't. Now the thing is, there's a counterpoint. We have, over-complicating, over-modularizing, over-engineering things has problems. My favorite one is the, recently Aqua had an outage where you couldn't build NPM things on their environments. And I don't know who named the NPM issue, but I'm a big fan. Because for the audience at home, Shai Hulud is the big worm in Dune, and so it was just like, someone's been watching their movies recently. Also, something we need to think about for the folks, package manager dependencies is a ticking time S-bomb. Bad dad joke again. Software bill of materials is something that's going to come up in the future. I think it's a good idea, but I think at some point it's going to cause a lot of work for people in our industry very quickly. Work, I think, is worthwhile, but it's something to at least be passively aware of in the future. I know there are organizations who are getting really touchy about adding new packages to their builds. Because package hijacking has shown to have happened, and like I said, I work at a fintech firm, so people would really love. We handle some incredibly sensitive data that I see. So, like I'll be walking through my through the cubicle sometimes at my work, and I'll if I accidentally glance on someone's screen, I'll see. We do identity verifications, so people upload their driver's licenses. We deal, people's credit histories. I mean, I've even seen someone scan their social security card, and it's just sitting, it's on a desk. It's not the social security card isn't sitting on someone's desk, but it's on someone's screen, and it's like,
But the loophole to you can't use any dev branches is you just adopt all of those codes yourself? Question mark?
Yeah. No, like this is where we're having this discussion, and handling ultra sensitive PI, personally identifiable information, it's gonna keep happening. the digital, we're not going backwards in terms of in as a society digitally.
Do you think that creating your own mirror registry for these package dependencies, whether they be from packages or NPM or wherever, safeguards you from those automatic releases that if you run a package update might eke into your system? If you manually intervene with your own registry, you can then specifically state which versions you want.
I mean, yeah, it'll temporarily solve the problem if someone comes, if there's a malicious event and someone, package hijacks. If you've got your own mirrors, it, keeps you safe for the moment. Much like, I think the metaphor I keep thinking of is like, if you have, you're in a neighborhood and, you sandbag your house before the creek rose, like, yeah, you're safe for now. But long term, thinking systemically, thinking, more than just an organization, it's something as an engineer, I think, okay, I can't fix this problem. And I don't even know anyone who can fix this problem, but I know all of us collectively, this is a collective action problem. Being able to say, okay, how do we secure packages? How do we verify? Okay, I'm composer requiring this package. How do I ensure to my, to the people that I depend on, or that depend on me for security, that this is going to be okay?
Well, and the question that's been asked thousands of times at this point is, how do you pay the bills of the people who you expect to do those security updates so that you don't get a 0 day?
Mm-hmm.
Because those people need to feed their babies.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So we got, how did we get here? Agile, we got here by making mistakes, by doing things wrong. Agile born a waterfall. The only waterfall I prefer is the ones that are in the gorge. This one actually isn't for those who aren't native to Oregon. This one's actually Silver Creek Falls, which is about an hour and a half south of here. If you ever deign to come back down to the Oregon area, Silver Creek Falls State Park. It actually has an interesting history. It was slated to be the second national park in Oregon. Back in the 40s and 50s, so it's right up there with Crater Lake in my book. All right. So one thing, we need to think of software as more performance than product. Think about it. We have rehearsals, we have releases. We call production. We call it production for a reason. I haven't, when we reframe the software as, okay, this is an ongoing thing that's going to continuously evolve and grow. If we think of it more as like Lin-Manuel Miranda and less like Henry Ford, I think we'll have a better shot at understanding how things need to evolve over time. Because we iterate, for example, we now use automated testing. We use continuous integration. We didn't really replace automated testing. We just don't run it. We just don't have engineers sitting, mostly for the most part, sitting and running tests all day. But what is going to replace CI and CD? I think that's an interesting question. I don't know I really don't know the answer, which is why I put 2 question marks down there. I have no idea what will replace CI CD. But I'm curious. But I'm openly curious about it. Because evolution is everywhere. DevOps is here. We no longer have a sysadmin. We have DevOps people who understand PHP, who do more than just reboot servers, and because we've worked onto that. We have SRE. We have site reliability engineers, people who don't build features, but they make sure the site is up, like our featured guest on the screen, Liz Fong Jones. She's an ex-Googler, SRE, site reliability engineer, and if you have not read her work, she's incredible. I think her address is Liz the Gray. If you just look that up. Yeah, like I said, back in my day we had sysadmins, but then virtualization became a thing. Virtualization led to containerization, and now, without even thinking, most of us just use DDEV. You do DDEV start, and that's spinning a bananas amount of of virtual machines. If you were to think about it in even 10 years ago.
If you had to plug in all those wires yourself?
Thanks. No, I did not. But
No, but if you had to build a web box and a command line box and a database box all separately and plug them all into each other,
yeah,
and now I can just push this button.
Yeah. Now we just config. Now we just run configs. So yeah, the idea. So I actually, this was one of the original thoughts I had when I was building this, was that Puppet's manifest walked, so K8's cluster can fly. Puppet is still around. It is, but I mean, I remember back in the day when it was the new hotness. But yeah, now we have Kubernetes. But we need to understand what's the wins and losses. And like I said, those 3 points in the sidebar, those are things that I like to keep in my mind when I'm thinking about how to understand, how to break down what went well and why. How did it succeed? Why was it successful? What particular changes, what tweaks, what was different about what we're using that makes things difficult.
You're basically saying retrospectives aren't just for teams, they're for software life cycles.
Yeah. Oh. Let's learn from our mistakes and our successes. And that's actually, I like calling the be curious, not judgmental. And it is actually Ted Lasso because it's not Walt Whitman. So, all right. So, let's differentiate. By separating concerns, we can modular, we can specialize without losing our generality. By working with others, by collaborating, we are more than just our individual actions. And the community we have in Drupal has really shown that over time. And this is one of the reasons why I am such a hardcore, I don't want to call it fanatic, partisan for Drupal and for the Drupal community in particular, in that there's resiliency here. There's resiliency in Drupal, there's resiliency in the Drupal community. And one of the personifications of that is our featured guest here on this slide, Amy June Heinlein. She's the 2021 Aaron Winborn awardee, and an all-around awesome lady. If you'll see her, you'll probably see her at the next DrupalCon. She is incredible. She's I would be proud to call her a colleague.
She's the biggest open source advocate I know.
Yeah. She's worked for the Linux Foundation. She's worked for Red Hat. She's been all over, and she's incredible. All right, let's get into failures. We're going to give some examples of historical failures, who failed and why, and how did they fail. So first up, hubris. Hubris is it's a Greek word. It's pride, overarching. In mythology, hubris is basically a green light for the gods. So the best story I can think of, the one that we tell our kids, is the story of Arachne. She was a famous weaver, and she boasted she was better than Athena, the goddess of housework, and Athena turned her into a spider. So yeah, you think, for example, Blockbuster was the place to be on a Friday night when I was a kid growing up, and and now it's a single store in Bend that they made a movie with Steve Carell in because everyone watches Netflix. They're a relic. Single point of failure is another historical failure. About 4 years ago, Facebook had a major outage wherein all of their services went down, and one of the big problems was Facebook used Messenger for their internal product to use for access control for their server infrastructure.
Dog fooding is great so long as you have a backup plan.
Yeah. So basically, what it meant was when they had an outage, the door locks on their server rooms became inaccessible. So literally, for folks, if you can't read that, so someone actually had to go get an angle grinder to get into a server cage at Facebook because Facebook locked their keys inside of the server.
The story I heard was that they run their own DNS server, and there was no backup to the DNS, and when their DNS went down, they couldn't access any IP services. So that even if the services were up, they weren't accessible over the network.
Yep. And then there's a really fantastic blog post about that. Like, oh, well, what is that? I was like, well, I pay someone to think of that for me. It's like, maybe we're getting back to hubris, but yeah, again, single point of failure. All right, resource misallocation. I neglected to get the Kodak logo. But, who failed and why? Kodak was on how they failed. Because they were researching, Kodak unbelievably had some of the first digital cameras, but I think they were thinking, oh, well, people love film. We don't have to worry about that so much. Again, titan industry. One of the biggest, they had whole towns built off of Kodak plants or Kodak catalog, Kodak products. And now I think they just do custom film for X-ray machines and whatnot. Supply chain mismanagement. Anyone remember the Ever Given? The Ever Given was a cargo ship that was transiting a canal and got stuck. And it messed with the entire global trade infrastructure for weeks while this boat got unstuck. Because everyone figured, the canal can never be closed. It's the Suez Canal. It's been around forever. Whenever anyone thinks about we talk about single point of failure. We talk about infrastructure. People need to feed their babies. I love putting this comic out in front of it's an XKCD comic, and it said I love putting. What was that?
What does it say?
What does it say? Okay. So it says so at the very top up here, it says all modern digital infrastructure, and there's a giant pile of blocks, and then there's a little teeny tiny block down there, and it says a project some random person in Nebraska has been thanklessly maintaining since 2003.
Yeah.
There are.
Based on a true story.
It's based on the real terrifying part is this is actually somewhat rosy because there's actually probably about 3 or 4. Off the top of my head, I can think of Curl, gzip, and Image Magic. I think there are several projects on which a significant amount of the internet's infrastructure depends on, and one of them I think was actually maintained by a single developer in Ukraine, which in 2020, I don't need to paint people a picture. 2021 happened, and then it's like, okay, well, this is now a literal war zone, so I'm like a metaphorical one. One last one, and this is the one that probably keeps me up at night in more cases than other historical failures, is the outside context problem. This one has happened in the past. I would consider probably Kodak's and blockbusters being outside context problems. An outside context problem for folks who aren't super sci-fi nerds. It was a concept invented by the author Ian Banks in the Culture series, and I'll read it directly from him. An outside context problem was the sort of thing most civilizations encountered just once, and which they tended to encounter rather in the same way a sentence encounters a full stop. The usual example given to illustrate an outside context problem was imagining you were a tribe on a largest fertile island. You tamed the land, invented the wheel or writing or whatever. The neighbors were cooperative or enslaved or at any rate peaceful, and you were busy raising temples to yourself with all the excess productive capacity you had. You're in possession of near absolute power and control, which your hallowed ancestors would hardly dreamed of, and the whole situation was just running along nicely like a canoe in wet grass. When suddenly this bristling lump of iron appears sailless and trailing steam in the bay, and these guys carrying long, funny-looking sticks come ashore and announce you've just been discovered. You're all subjects of the Emperor now. He's keen on presents called tax, and these bright-eyed holy men would like a word with your priests. Yeah, so it's an outside context problem. It's not even unexpected. It's outside of the realm of being considered. So this is, to me, the true definition of disruption. Not the VC. Let's disrupt it.
Well, but the flip side of it is that Silicon Valley, investors are looking for these kinds of things and propping them up as fast as they possibly can to try and make money right now. But the ones that end up succeeding, Uber killed taxis, etc., right?
Mm-hmm.
Or DoorDash killed restaurant businesses. I mean, in certain ways.
Yeah, you can't really. The knock-on effects are kind of they're unknown unknowns. We don't know what we don't know.
All of these examples, though, seem that there's some form of adaptation that could have been embraced to kind of prevent the inevitable downfall, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's, as you said earlier, we're all human. Our own stubbornness gets in the way sometimes.
Exactly. I mean, if you looked at, if you told a Blockbuster executive, I'm from the future, internet's going to get way cheaper and way, way, way faster, and you're going to be able to get really high resolution images over the internet, I'd be like, yeah, so people like going to the store and getting the popcorn and their DVDs now, and there's going to be Blu-rays, and people love the album artwork. We have a dependency.
I don't know. Netflix was doing mail, right? And they were called Netflix, right?
Right.
It was right there.
Yeah.
They didn't fit.
Yeah. So to avoid, at least disruption can come for anyone, but building resiliency, finding ways around it. How do we do that?
If you read a lot of these businessy type books, they call this Horizon 1 business is renting the videos. The Horizon 2 business is, like a subscription service that lets you rent as many videos as you want. And the Horizon 3 business is, we're going to fund our own feature films,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Which, looking at Netflix, that's exactly what they've done. Again, if you told, you went to if you presented K-pop Demon Hunters and what it was going to be to a Blockbuster executive in 2003, they'd be like, well, what are you talking about? This rental company can't license their own content with Sony and then turn it into a global, empire. No, exactly. So, whatever the paradigm is in use, I try to keep those principles in mind. The evaluate, cogitate, and then innovate. So, I have a tendency to prefer something like an agile because I like to make bad decisions, but I like to make them faster. Because if we can iterate through the bad decisions, but eventually we'll run out of the bad decisions and we'll start making good ones, just by dint of just activity.
I'd say that might be a narrow midnight.
I mean, if anything, I want to make new mistakes. I don't want to keep making. Progress is accomplished by sheer dint of activity through making new mistakes.
It's like hitting yourself in the head with a hammer. It feels so good when you stop.
It does. And yet sometimes we keep doing it. So we move forward. Like I said before, we don't have sysadmin anymore. We have DevOps, people who can speak somewhat, who understand the needs of developers, but also understand the needs of servers. We're no longer siloing those roles, and we're communicating more. I really strongly believe in that last point. Fewer silos equal more momentum. Getting people, again, going back to that, who's in the room, who should be in the room. Who aren't we talking to? So tools for building the future. The repetition is a big thing for me. I enjoy that. So it's collaboration. You think about it seriously. What are the tools we use every day? They're collaboration tools. All the tools we use every day, they're either collaboration as their primary function, or if you really squint at it, it's kind of at least their secondary. I know. For me, Jira is kind of a bit of a stretch to be considered a collaboration tool, but if you really think about it, comment threads are really where, if you're in a ticket, if you're in a Jira story, the comment thread is really where the work gets done, where you're refining acceptance criteria, you're pushing back on features, you're evaluating level of effort. That's where the work gets done in Jira is the collaboration.
I would venture to agree that it is a primary function of Jira because your stakeholders create intake and tickets that then you collaborate with team members and maintainers to resolve.
No, absolutely. It seems wild or it might seem wild for some people. Like, wait, Jira's a collaboration tool. Really? So, evolve or die quicker. As a bit of a nihilist, we all projects end, all companies, shuffle off this mortal coil. But as an engineer, keeping things running is something I enjoy, and so making sure that things, creating some longevity is something I enjoy. Is a problem I enjoy fixing. So we understand the needs of our users. We diligently attempt to create a positive experience. Giving a shout out to Dr. Goodall. She was a momentous creator and a collaborator and a researcher, and she had an impact on the world's outlook. And getting back to collaboration, she collaborated and she told stories, and that created a culture that encouraged her work. And so getting back to what I'm talking about at Concora, we deal with a lot of really sensitive data, and users trust us with that, and so it's our duty to do right by them. As part of that, security history, learning from that. The phrase "safety rules are written in blood" is one I can tend to think of. Crises are good? Because we learn things. Taking lessons from things that have happened. For example, anti-spear phishing training and security training are now de rigueur for most large organizations. Learning what a suspicious email looks like. That's something that businesses are now actively training for and creating processes to allow for that. Two-factor authentication. A lot of times when I get into an organization, the first thing I ask is, okay, what's your TFA look like? Okay, well, is it an app? Is it a Is it a key? Are we doing RSA encryption? And then lastly, also password managers. These are they're kind of a newer arrival because having the same password is a bad idea. And yet some of us do it, again, because we're creatures of habit.
Also, if you get a phone call from your mom and she asks you to read a 6-digit code, say, I'm going to hang up and call you back. Do not read her that 6-digit code.
That's why I don't have a PayPal.
Yeah. No, and it's an evolving thing. Back when I started, passwords were considered, password verification, password changing, creating I love the passphrases now. People are changing that. We're not even using password as a phrase to use when you are creating credentials. We're saying passphrase because the idea is if you're doing people can do dictionary tags on the fly now. So having an 8-digit password is just not going to cut it anymore. How do we keep up as people? Continuing education is more than just a line item on a job offer. Y'all are here. This is continuing education. It can be fun. So for me, I try to set a goal of at least 15 minutes a week to learn something, anything. It doesn't have to be code related. For me, a lot of times it's not actually. I'm taking an opportunity recently to flex my cognitive muscles by learning another language. I speak Spanish, but I'm also learning German now because German sounds like an interesting language to learn and grow more in. And then the last one that I think is a little trickier, but it can be very rewarding, is teach someone anything, whether it's how to make risotto or how to how to create a new vocabulary in Drupal. Teaching people is a good way to figure out what gaps you have in your own knowledge base. So teaching others anything really is a fantastic way to reinforce your own learning and again flex those cognitive muscles. All right. So this is me. I'm Nielsen M on D.O. I'm also Nielsen M on Drupal Slack. That's my email address. If anyone wants to reach out and share horror stories, commiserate, feel free. Yeah, I love. I can at very least lend a listening ear. Again, thank you for attending, everyone, and thank you for joining us at Pacific Northwest Drupal Summit.